SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C Spire. Power your home or business with C Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C Spire. C Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
All right, it looks like they got their man. This killer, assassin, suspect at this point, Tyler Robinson. Mugshots have been released. So, first thing that comes to mind on this deal to me, Rhino, is fantastic work done by various law enforcement agencies. But again, I think this is a testament to the technology that exists today that law enforcement was aided by in getting their man. And I heard an interview with the president this morning, really before the news organizations released any reports or any stories. He was interviewed on Fox and Friends, and he announced it. I believe that was the first, right? Public.
Yeah, he broke it.
He broke it during the interview. And, you know, that's a little out of protocol, you may say, for a president. I like it. I do. Why not? Why not the president?
I'm pretty sure that would be an example of transparency.
Correct. Yes, the commander-in-chief, the highest-ranking official publicly in the country, says on the air. And he handled it so deftly. What he said was, I don't want to really get into the details. I just was told before I came on with you, we got him, and he did disclose. It looks like it was a combination of the parents, right? A minister and a U.S. Marshal.
Yeah, the story I've seen put together is that after the FBI reached out to the public, once they'd pretty much exhausted all of their digital forensics and were asking the public for tips, the pictures they posted for the public's viewing, a minister recognized the shooter and contacted the shooter's dad to put pressure on the dad to turn his son in, because the dad is apparently a multi-decade veteran of law enforcement.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So my wife just sent me a message. Check it out here. She's tuned in. And she said Kirk was also his friend. I'm not sure who's Julie, who are you talking about? Whose friend exactly here? It may have been the minister, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? And this has really devastated him and his family, so I think indifference to that. Oh, Trump's friend. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That's what she said. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. And I think the president would easily acknowledge that Charlie Kirk was largely responsible for persuading so many Gen Z people to see the light of day of conservative policy and the president's overall agenda and vote in his favor, which was a bit of a turnabout from the prior election. And I think Charlie Kirk's stroke and influence had a lot to do with that. Because, and this is the difference, I believe, between him and the left, because he just spoke the truth, and he didn't talk in a condescending fashion, and he didn't condemn or criticize people who didn't agree with him. He just basically debated them and presented facts to them.
I mean, there were times when people would just show their rear at the microphone, like, for example, the dude that walked up with a megaphone and continued talking over him, calling him a liar, saying this guy spouts lies, and then walked off cursing him. Charlie Kirk was a bit condescending when he pointed out, this is the modern left.
Yeah, and he'd be right.
It was never his first foot forward. He was never trying to intentionally show any animus towards whoever he was debating. That's why he would always usually start it with, hey, welcome, what's your name?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but contrast that to the left. And this is a key distinction. I'm not aware of any situations where people that are on the right raise hell and drown out and jump up and down, and in many cases, flat out deny, prohibit someone with conservative viewpoints even speaking on certain campuses, right? They just say, no, you can't come. My gosh, every time Riley Gaines shows up, she's got security detail. People go crazy. There's been incidents where she's been pushed around and rushed at and so forth by nutcases that just don't agree with her viewpoints.
Because they're nutcases.
Is that not the difference? I mean, guys, if you know of a situation where there's some conservative thinking people that have behaved in that fashion, let me know. And by the way, I don't support that either. That's the difference. You see, to the left, it's perfectly acceptable. You sent me an interesting analysis. I'll let you share that with the folks. You sent me an interesting analysis earlier this morning, and it's just incredible the way people think. But, yeah, it's acceptable to drown out, to jump up and down, to just make such a scene that they don't even get to speak. So you really don't believe in free speech?
It's acceptable to be happy about the death of a public figure they oppose, because that was the question presented to the people taking the survey at YouGov. Do you generally consider it to be acceptable or unacceptable for a person to be happy about the death of a public figure they oppose? And when you break it down by politics, Democrats always find it acceptable and Republicans find it unacceptable. 77% of Republicans believe it is always unacceptable to feel joy at the death of someone they oppose, while Democrats, only 38% say it is unacceptable to feel joy at the death of someone they oppose.
It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable.
So if you got offended yesterday when I called these people subhuman filth, I'm glad you got offended. You need your feelings hurt because you need to snap back to reality.
Well, how could you describe anyone who has such incredibly low regard for human life as a human? You're not a human. You're not wired as a human if you don't have some feelings about this horrific assassination of another human. I can't comprehend it. Now, I sent you several videos that I easily came across, easily meaning I log on to Twitter, and it's like every other post, right? It's some video from some liberal nutcase being interviewed and talking so callously, responding so callously to the question, do you feel anything about this assassination, this murder of Charlie Kirk? No, I'm happy. I mean, it's crazy stuff. We're talking about Gen Z people, by the way. The problem is, something I talked about earlier in the show, the vast majority of them have F-bombs in them. Can they not speak without that? Now, look, I'm not naive enough to believe that there aren't people on the right that use language like that, sure, I get it.
I don't have the mouth of a saint when I'm not on the air.
Well, sure.
It's like a switch I flip.
Right. But
because I like this job, and I don't want to lose it by saying a word that I'm not allowed to say.
But why in a video? When you're talking about the death of a human, why do you have to invoke that? And it's females, which just blows me away. I don't know why. Again, call me old-fashioned. I can't comprehend it. Now,
it's because you come from a generation where women actually wanted to be feminine.
Turns out that's attractive to men. Filthy language like that, it's not attractive to men. It's really not. And you guys that use it, and I'm talking about in a public setting. I don't mean on the golf course, in the woods, in the locker room, in your car, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you're being captured on video, right? And you know that it's going to be published on the internet, and you still do it. I don't get it. I really don't. And especially...
That's how brazen the left is with their hate. The right has to hide any hatred or any disagreement they might have behind anonymous accounts. The left just posts it on their LinkedIn or their Facebook with their full legal name, how much they hate the other side.
I'm blown away by it. I'm disappointed by it. I'm saddened for our country in that respect. But, I also feel like that the worm is turning. Coming right back.
The best.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
2, 3, 4.
So, closer to home concerning this issue, my alma mater, Ole Miss, has terminated the employment of the person who worked in the administration who shared a post calling Charlie Kirk reimagined Klan member. Kudos to Chancellor Glenn Boyce, who condemned the comments as contrary to the university's values, emphasizing the need for a respectful campus environment. Why in the world? I applaud the chancellor for reminding people of that. Why do you have to remind people of that? That's where we are in society.
Because the left has spent the last couple generations demonizing and dehumanizing anybody that didn't 100% agree with them.
It's totally true.
And they ramped it up under Obama.
The chancellor said these comments run completely counter to our institutional values of civility, fairness, and respecting the dignity of each person. By the way, those values embedded in the Ole Miss Creed. We condemn these actions, and this staff member is no longer employed by the university. He also said campus community members, quote, have a responsibility to take seriously our commitment to upholding a civil and respectful campus environment. Just incredible that this staffer would post something. Lauren Stokes, her name. And look, I'm told by friends in Oxford that she was a delightful person, except now she shows her true colors, right? She can't hold back, and that may be the case. But she's out of there now, and what she posted, I don't even know why you feel motivated to do so. What sort of perverse pleasure do you derive from posting something like that within hours of a person being assassinated, executed in front of their family?
Well, if every single person that thinks like you and acts like you and votes like you has been dehumanizing and demonizing someone like Charlie Kirk for being a fascist or a Nazi or a misogynist or a sexist or a racist, well, it gets a little easier to not have any human emotion when they die, apparently.
I don't get it. So there are so many examples, especially, again, in what has become the cesspool of cultural rot. That's America's university environment. Deeply disturbing to me that kids that haven't earned a paycheck, haven't had to just to survive, are making these kind of statements. The University of Montana, pro-abortion students laughing at Charlie Kirk being fatally shot. And again, as I peruse Twitter, it's like every other post was a video of some wackadoodle, totally insensitive. Yet, aren't they the ones that always grouse to us on the right as, you're just inhumane, you have no human compassion?
This is what happens when the old guard of leftist terrorism takes over universities.
That's exactly right. We have
I
got
asked the question, what happened to Weather Underground?
Yeah, tell the folks about that.
Bernadine Dorn, one of the founders who co-founded with Bill Ayers the Weather Underground, the leftist terrorist organization that bombed all over the place in the 70s into the 80s. Bernadine Dorn co-founded the Children and Family Justice Center after she was a law professor at Northwestern University School of Law. Bill Ayers, the other co-founder. Both of these people were on the FBI's most wanted list. He surrendered in '80 and charges were dropped. He became a distinguished professor of education at the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Of course. They welcome people who think like that in the university environment. But
either you wound up in jail or you wound up in an academia. And even some of the ones that went to jail wound up in academia when they got out.
That is so true. But there are exceptions, and I want to point one out right now, and it's from our friend Stephen Scoltetti. He, of course, has been on the show a few times. He's a professor of philosophy, chair of the Department of Philosophy and Religion, and he's at the University of Mississippi. He's also the director of the Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. And he issued a statement to those in his email Rolodex, and I'm going to read it to you. He says, "Dear friends and supporters, as director of the Ole Miss Declaration Center, I do not regularly express my personal opinions about current events, lest they be taken as an official position of the University of Mississippi or one of its units. But I feel compelled to make a public statement about the political assassination of Charlie Kirk because the Declaration Center itself helped to plan his visit scheduled to Ole Miss on October 29th. And here's what the professor said, Stephen Scoltetti. "I share the outrage and horror so poignantly expressed by many commentators. I also share the sorrow of those who have rightfully pointed out that Kirk was a firm believer in having a civil dialogue about contentious topics that one would hope takes place on university campuses. However, as I myself reflect on Kirk's life and tragic death, I can't help but think of the fundamental point made by our own Declaration of Independence. The document is in italics, Declaration of Independence, not in italics, description of independence." Wow, that's so well put, Professor, because it advocates for and announces an action. Charlie Kirk was a profoundly American figure, always ready to make declarations and always willing to take action, even at great personal risk. The Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom will do its best to honor his legacy. We pray for Kirk's family and friends. We pray for our country. How refreshing is that to come from a university professor of philosophy, no less? That is fantastic. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for those well-crafted words. And I talked to him yesterday, Rhino, by the way. I said, I'm going to read it. And I extended my appreciation and gratitude to him for his comments there, which I think are a breath of fresh air, maybe a glimmer of hope and light on our university campuses. So think about that. Within a few yards, you got one nutcase in the Lyceum there that describes him as a Klan. And you got Professor Skoltedi that sees him for what he is, a person who championed the First Amendment and the Declaration of Independence. And the first paragraph in it, the first statement, the left can't comprehend, nor do they support the idea, the concept that our founders knew so profoundly, that our rights are endowed to us by our Creator, not government. And anybody that supports that view is like Satan to them. And Charlie Kirk was a champion of the First Amendment and didn't shout down people who disagreed with him unless they just got out of control.
No, usually he let them finish, and then when they stormed off, then he would make a snide remark.
That's absolutely true. But they got to speak and say their mind and say their piece. And then he would usually prove how out of touch they were with facts. Unbelievable. And they didn't like that. And that's what I believe was this killer's message. We don't want people exposing the truth. We want things to be our way, even though it's a bad way. They know it. The governor of Utah also condemning the political violence, as we all should. The president also, Rhino, he made a great point this morning in saying our legal system, our legal process is too protracted. It takes too long. And, he referenced China. He actually said, you do stuff like this in China, it's within 24 hours. There's something going on, right? The consequences are being imposed, whatever those may be. I'm all for, we on the right, we support due process. This killer, I'm going to go ahead and call him a killer, is entitled to due process. But this should not drag on for years, and that's what the president said. And that's the truth. That often happens in our legal system. That's not a strong deterrent to the future commission of such heinous acts. And Patel runs the FBI. He praises the FBI after the suspect's arrest. Fantastic work they did for sure. We're stepping aside for a break. We got Kelly Bennett coming on with the news at 11:20 and Representative Jansen Owens about school choice at 12:05.
From the Seabrook, Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Okay, so are you tracking this, Rhino? The inscriptions on the casings, more information about that. So
yeah, I believe one was inscribed with something along the lines of, "Here, fascist, catch."
Yes. Hey, fascist, catch, with an up arrow, a right arrow, and 3 down arrows. Is that significant? What does that mean? I don't know. So what does "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow" mean? That was also inscribed. That would be Italian, right? Or could that be Spanish?
Chow's Italian.
That's what I thought, yeah. I didn't know if that word was also included in
Bella Ciao's an Italian folk song about sacrifice, freedom, and resistance.
Ah, well, that's what it says. And
the anthem for World War II Italian anti-fascist partisans.
Ah, okay. Isn't that clever? Freaking murderer. And the third says, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. What does that mean? It's
I mean, that's an online prank you pull when you're 13 years old.
Right, exactly.
You type it in text to your friends or
The walls of the
whatever.
toilets as well, right? Stuff like that. Yeah. The stalls. Yeah.
I didn't see
Unbelievable.
the last two. I just saw the first one.
Incredible. So that just released three casings, each with a separate inscription. Those are the descriptions. Clearly, a bad person that doesn't deserve to live. Now, a couple other things the president said in this interview, if you hadn't caught it, folks, he noted that Utah has the death penalty. He said in the interview he supported imposing the death penalty if he's convicted, if he's found guilty. Bravo, Mr. President. We got to start deterring this stuff. You do it, you're going to get caught, you're going to die. So that's a sad waste of a life. You wasted your life here, dude, at 22. You made this decision. You're old enough. You're personally responsible. But the left tells us you're not responsible, right? Individual responsibility, rugged individualism, delayed gratification, can-do attitude, working as a team, striving for success. The left has told us now those are all elements of white supremacy. That's European colonization. You see what that gets you? And I'm not
Sadly, the shooter will have accomplished one thing. It will be much more difficult for any right-wing influencer to have open-air forums on college campuses.
That is sad. I
College
agree.
campuses already use the excuse of security concerns to bar right-wing voices from campus.
We can't
This
let them
will
win,
just
man.
be an even bigger hurdle to overcome because they will require increased security, and some organizations simply won't have the funds to do so.
Man. Oh, man. So the default method of execution is lethal injection in Utah. However, the firing squad remains an option for those sentenced, it says before in the information I'm looking at, before May 2004, and for whom lethal injection drugs are unavailable. How does that happen?
Left-wing activists say it's cruel and unusual punishment, so they pressure manufacturers into no longer providing the necessary chemicals required to perform the lethal injection.
Oh, man. So folks on the text line are saying it's firing squad, but that's not consistent with what I'm finding in my research here. You may see something different, and I may need to dig a little further.
I don't remember if it was Utah or not, but I do remember some states were reinstituting older forms of execution when they were having a hard time getting execution drugs.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's interesting. I hate to be so callous myself here, but I don't see any use for this person. And more importantly, if we don't take serious action, it's going to continue. It is meant to be a deterrent. Again, a little second order thinking there, I guess. But that's absolutely what the purpose of such harsh consequences are for committing this kind of crime. That's what that's all about. The president also announced in his interview this morning, Rhino, he's sending in the National Guard to Memphis. And he shared his motivation for that. What induced him to pick Memphis. He said he's friends with someone that I think is the CEO of a big, I think it's Union Pacific, if I'm not mistaken, the big rail company, right? Rail transportation company, who sits on the board of Federal Express. Not surprising. You think about the related industries. So in sitting on the board of a Federal Express, he travels to Memphis, where they're headquartered. And the president said this CEO informed him that when he goes to Memphis, He wears a bulletproof vest. He travels with a huge security detail in a vehicle that rivals the Beast. And it's completely bulletproof glass. It's designed to be totally secure and protect against craziness. And he said, yeah, they won't let me walk out of the hotel a block for fear that some nutcase would snuff him out. That's terrible. It's just terrible that you can't walk in public like that in an American city. So the president said, yeah, Memphis, that's where we're going. Now, I haven't seen any response from Memphis government. I'm quite sure they would push back on it. I dealt with Memphis government in my business career. We had a big client, Memphis Light Gas and Water. By the way, that is the largest three-service public service utility, meaning not a private company, owned by the city of Memphis. 800,000 customers in Shelby County. And I can't tell you the struggles I had through the years of having a fantastic relationship with the IT folks there with all their minority contracting crap. I'm talking 20 years ago. This didn't just start. You know that. It's been going on. Actually, it was the late 90s when we won the initial contract to build a metropolitan area network to encircle Memphis for the purposes of MLGW. You know, networks and IT run our utilities, right? So we did that. Fantastic relationship with the great people that worked in the IT, very large IT department, as you can imagine, big organization. And constantly having to struggle with, but these guys have the best service, the best solutions at an affordable price that's equal or in the neighborhood of everybody else. And they would force me to include all this minority participation, and we did our dead level best to do it. But it wasn't enough. And I got called to the office of the person in charge of the minority contracting there at MLGW. Unbelievable office that overlooked the Mississippi River. I mean, you would think this was a Fortune CEO's office, honestly. And he proceeded to scold me because he didn't think there was enough minority participation. I know I've told this story before, but everybody doesn't hear it. And I just sat there and took it while he's banging on the table at me. We've got to have more minority participation. And I finally just asked the question, what do you hear about our service? I hear your service is exemplary. What's the problem? Isn't that what it's all about? If our service isn't, you know what happens? People don't get water, gas, and electricity. 800,000 customers. Unbelievable. That wasn't good enough. I believe all of this crap we're enduring today stems from when that started to take hold in mainly municipal government. And the president knows that, and he pointed it out. And I guarantee you there's a racial component in law enforcement and prosecution, the legal process in Memphis, which is why it's so dangerous. And that's not to say that white people don't commit crime. Of course they do. But we all know that in the name of equity, they tend to look the other way. Isn't that true? Book them out. Go do another one. It's happening across America. And all
the left refuses to acknowledge the reality of statistics.
So true. And that's why it's a hellhole, honestly. And they're ruining America's great cities, Memphis being one of them. Bravo, Mr. President. Send the dang troops in. Come to Jackson. Coming right back.
Hello,
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
We've got the right to choose it. There
All right, so we got some sound to play for you. This is just one of the maybe thousands, I don't know, maybe millions of clips, videos recorded from callous, loony liberals about this assassination. Go ahead.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Wow. Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Wow. That's good. That's good that people are getting shot just off a political view? Good that people are dying in America?
Did you see that Charlie Kirk got shot and killed today?
Yes, I did.
How do you feel about that?
I don't really have any feelings about it. Who are you?
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it. And that's how I feel at this point in time. But
You know, I appreciate your honesty. I truly do. So you said someone had to do it.
yes. Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
So if you had a magical wand, a magical button that you could press and keep him from being assassinated, would you press that?
No. I think things happen for a purpose. And if that's how his life was ended, then that's how it was ended.
So let me get this straight. They're justifying murder based on beliefs. You say it all the time. You don't believe as I do, you got to go. Yet they're the same people that are always griping about the end of democracy, decrying that if Donald Trump's elected.
And have somehow convinced themselves if they could just rid the world of right-wing thinkers, then it would all be kumbaya and sunshine and rainbows.
Unbelievable. Do you think they could define democracy?
Probably not.
Or understand the values that made this country great? Because they don't align with them. When you're condoning murder of someone that doesn't think like you, man, are our founders rolling over in their graves or what?
Depends on who you ask, but it seems like they have been for a minute.
True. But are we waking up to this maybe? Feels
Hopefully.
like it. I agree. So a friend is listening and just sent me a text. He heard me talking about Memphis. It said, with a crime rate of 113 per 1,000 residents, Memphis has one of the highest rates in America compared to all communities of all sizes, from the smallest towns to the very largest cities. One's a chance of becoming a victim of either violent or property crime in Memphis is 1 in 9. Within Tennessee, more than 100% of the communities have a lower crime rate than Memphis. As of September 2025, Memphis has reported 168 homicides, averaging approximately 26.5 per 100,000 residents, marking a 20.8% decrease from the prior year. Despite this decline, the city's homicide rate remains among the highest in the nation. It appears that the left Democrat elected officials in these cities are oblivious, ignore it, justify it, maybe a little bit of all the above. What's up with that? Wouldn't you want to fix that problem?
Not if it doesn't fit your narrative or the false reality you live in called La La Land.
Unbelievable. On the C Spire text line, on the 901, maybe somebody from the Memphis area, send in the troops to Memphis and Jackson. The death penalty needs to be used. This nation has become like animals. No respect for anyone or anything. Everything feels they are entitled. It's a very sad state. You know, it's one thing to feel you're entitled to property, wealth, money, something of economic value. It's another to think you're entitled to the death of a person that disagrees with you? I can't wrap my head around that. I really can't. I don't know what else to do but turn to God and pray, honestly. But I know one thing. We ain't going to shut up about it. We can't. And I said something on my social media about it, and I got asked by somebody, well, are you condoning violence as a solution here? No, not whatsoever. Are they missing the second order thinking, the discernment here? Evidently. No, never would I propose that, condone it, suggest it, ever. There are other ways of dealing with this. We're taking a break for Fox News and SuperTalk News. Coming right back. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transmission now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are at the In the Element Well studio on this
Friday, y'all.
Yeah, I'm looking at what you sent me there. Tell us, oh my God, tell the folks
the
what happened.
The kids might,
here.
in fact, be all right.
Oh man, tell them about it.
Some clown dying for attention thought it would be cute to go to the campus of the University of Nebraska and set up a little table with some printed out signs that he's got taped to the table that say Charlie deserved it. Now, of course, this coward has a face mask covering his entire face and sunglasses to protect his identity. But apparently a group of dudes decided they weren't going to put up with that. So they picked him and his little table up and dumped him in the fountain that he was sitting in front of. And there's a video of him climbing out of the fountain while some onlookers cheer. I think this is safe. If not, I'll dump it.
That's so good.
Good boy. Come on. Good boy. Boy.
As he's all sodden and depressed because he's climbing out of the fountain in which he was just dunked.
That's awesome. Oh, what an idiot. I don't know what else to say. Who does something like this? Who sets up a table in public celebrating the death of a person because they had views that differed with yours?
Obviously a worthless waste of oxygen, a.k.a. the modern liberal.
Incredible. It truly is. Oh, my gosh. There's so many of them. And, of course, Rhino played one of them for you, but several other that I sent him are not permissible on air, unfortunately, because they include stupid, vile language. The medical worker praising his assassination got her scrubs on, maybe? Certainly her hat, her OR hat there.
I lost count at 62 last night of the number of confirmed terminations, firings, or opened investigations revolving around those who felt it pertinent to dance on the grave of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, and unbelievable.
So that's 62 people that are going to be out of the jobs report. Sorry, Mr. Trump.
Good. That's true. But, you know, there's a
I'm fairly certain everybody that worked with him is, if not outwardly, inwardly happy today, because these are the most miserable people. You know one. Everybody has that person in their life that is a bleeding heart blowhard that hasn't had their head screwed on straight since they turned 18.
It's totally true. And that's exactly right. They're actually relieved. They are pleased today that they don't have to deal with these insufferable individuals. Some positive, if you can see some silver linings here. rock legend Bob Seger stepped in, pledging to cover all living and educational expenses for Kirk's 2 children. Now, it's being reported he really didn't have a personal relationship, right, with Charlie Kirk, but he felt compelled to help. Stevie Nicks, you know her from Fleetwood Mac fame. All of us in college at the time were, of course, in love with her. Not only
her voice,
but she was pleasing to the old 20-year-old something eye. She said the two children, are innocent. After Charlie Kirk passed away, rock superstar Stevie Nicks stepped in, pledging to pay all living and educational expenses and a special gift for Kirk's 2 children. Thank you, Stevie. Thank you, Bob Seger. You're great humans, unlike the idiots that are celebrating and dancing on the grave. And then there's Zachary Stewart, Assistant Director of Admissions at Hampshire College. What a worthless piece of scum this individual is. This is what he posted. I'll say this once about Charlie Kirk. The man was a bastion, a fountain, a complete and utter tower of racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and so much more. I will never mourn the loss of a man like that, in all caps, ever. The only people I feel bad for are his children, simply because they will have to reckon with the kind of person he was. Not the fact that you took their father. That never entered his mind. He was a horrendous human being. I believe he has joined the ranks of those who have been terminated. Maybe not just yet, but he certainly should be. And you know it right off the bat, right? When you look at this person's page reference on the college's website. They're big into the pronouns. Zachary Stewart, in parentheses, he/him. You're the problem. You know you're dealing with a sick person right off the bat that feels compelled to say that, to tell you that.
His employment should be, was, were.
It's totally true. And there, honestly, there are so many examples. We could spend the next week sharing them with you. And unfortunately, so many of them are laced with profanity because somehow they get some sense of worth out of it, I guess. I really can't explain it. And again, I'm not being prudish here whatsoever. I'm not going to tell you that, oh no, I've never used vulgar language. But I don't do it in public or in front of females. I rarely do it at all because I just don't feel the need.
Feminists would say that's misogynistic.
Well, because
but feminists are part of the problem.
You mean because I'm being respectful?
Yes. Because you're not treating them like you would a man.
Oh my gosh. Maybe because I acknowledge there's a difference. That unto itself, right?
That's problematic for feminists.
Does that make me like a transphobic or some crap like that, or whatever the phobias
they'll
and the
twist
isms
themselves
are?
in knots to call you whatever they can contrive.
I guess so. It's so disappointing, and as a result of this brutal execution of Charlie Kirk, now you got members of Congress have taken steps to beef up their security. Many are moving public events that were scheduled for indoors, or canceling them altogether. One Republican lawmaker said he's going to start carrying a firearm at all times. Wow. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, a Republican running for governor in the Palmetto State, has been an outspoken critic of transgender people. No, I wouldn't say that. This is Times reporting, by the way. And she was canceling all
you're an
outdoor...
outspoken critic of transgender people if you say men can't get pregnant.
Correct. or you oppose medical treatment to affirm the twisted identity into a different gender of a child, of a minor. If you don't support that, in fact, they even equate that to murder, do they not? You're murdering the child by not completely whacking their genitals, butchering their genitals.
Because they point to the elevated suicide rate of trans individuals.
Yeah, because it finally hits them that they've screwed up.
But that's second order thinking. They can't go that far.
Ah, gotcha.
They just see the number bigger.
Oh, my gosh. Now, on the C Spire text line, someone sent us a photo, looks like, of the suspect who had gone to the mic at a Charlie Kirk event. Is that true? You
I haven't seen that confirmed in any way. There's a lot of speculation.
On the C Spire text line, the media are brainwashing, constantly hollering Hitler and Nazi and fascist. Yeah, I completely agree, and got into a bit of a debate with someone on the left who says all the incendiary rhetoric is coming from the president.
Bull. Open your eyes, Mr. Worthless Liberal.
Honestly, I couldn't believe that statement. Like, are you kidding me? You can't even talk about the president like ever without calling him a racist, a Nazi, a fascist, equivalent to Hitler. So consider that for a second. Because you don't agree with his viewpoints, you equate him to someone that murdered 6 million Jews. That's their logic? Yeah. Well,
or lack thereof.
Unbelievable.
Liberals don't tend to use much logic unless it's circular.
It doesn't appear. Kelly Bennett, multimedia journalist with SuperTalk Mississippi News, comes at us next at 11:20 here. We got to take a break from all this, man. We need some news that is a little bit more enlightening. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Guys starting to realize that eternal fate has turned its back on here. It's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. The fear is gone. It's 2 a.m. The gun's still warm.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We're pleased to welcome now Kelly Bennett, multimedia journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News. What's happening, Kelly?
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you?
I hear you. I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. Thank you.
Good. I'm feeding back. I'm trying to get rid of that feedback issue.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Gerard.
Yeah.
So, the big news this morning, I think it was around 7:30 this morning when President Trump announced on Fox News that the suspect in the public slaying of political activist Charlie Kirk had been captured. He's been identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah. Now, I don't know what you've heard and what you haven't heard, so I'm going to go over some stuff that, we may have covered already for you today. But during an FBI press conference this morning, Utah Governor Spencer Cox said the suspect's roommate is actually the one that shared some key evidence with law enforcement.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate.
His arrest leaves no doubt that the shooting was politically motivated. According to Cox, the suspect had become more political in recent years and was opposed to Kirk's beliefs. I think y'all have discussed what was written on the gun or the bullets this morning, so, definitely no doubt there. But I thought this was the most important thing that Utah Governor Cox said this morning.
I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse.
I thought that was really eloquent.
So good.
And
That's a good point.
A lot of people need to hear that. Yeah. I'm a big fan of, I don't know if you're familiar with this YouTuber. It's actually a group of 4 individuals, and they're body language experts, and they work for the military and PsyOps experts and stuff like that. And one of the guys does his own podcast as well. And after the murder of Charlie Kirk, he got on there on his YouTube. What's his name? Charles Hughes, I believe is his name. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. He talked about how this political division in our country is nothing but a big psyop, and that more of us have more in common with each other than we realize. And we really need to start seeing each other as neighbors and friends instead of enemies. And even in some cases, we've all seen it. It's very sad. It's very disheartening to see the people celebrating Kirk's murder this week. And I've seen more posts on my social media feeds this week about coming back to Jesus than I have ever seen. And if that's the good that comes out of this, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I hear you, Kelly. And that hopefully this is gaining the attention of people who love freedom and who love human life. And we've got to somehow return to just the basic fundamental respect for the dignity of human life. And it's just amazing to me that all these young people that we played some clips this morning are justifying this and are so callous and uncaring about it. I can't comprehend being that way ever as a human being. But it's even more disturbing, I don't know why, to me, that you're 21, 22 years old. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. Let's talk about what's going on here in the state of Mississippi. Big story a couple of days ago. Holly Springs, something we've talked a lot about on the show. Holly Springs Utility District fined by the Public Service Commission. Tell us about that.
They have been in trouble for years because they're not providing adequate service to Holly Springs Utility District customers. And the utility district is actually run by the city. So the PSC has ruled that they'll have to pay a fine of $12,500 per day. That decision reached during Tuesday's Public Service Commission's monthly docket hearing. PSC Commission Chair Chris Brown says the utility has been on notice about its inadequacies for more than 2 years.
The current administration didn't do this. It's decades in the making, but we all have to join together to solve this issue because it is a crisis. It's very third. It's almost like a third world, not exactly, but the power is not reliable. If you don't have reliable energy, then you can't have economic development.
September 4th, the PSC voted to petition a judge to put the utility into a receivership. There's some questions about, who would want to buy this broken utility and take it over?
Right.
Just so people are aware, the utility serves about 12,000 customers. Most of them live outside the city limits, and there have been a lot of debates about the fact that they're under a new administration now. That just happened recently, but a lot of people felt like they couldn't even vote the people out of office for years that were in charge of the utility. And that was a big, big issue for those residents or those utility district customers.
Talk about gas prices, how the different blends throughout the year affect the price of gas. What do we got there?
I learned this during an interview with AAA spokesman Don Bredman, and I thought this was interesting. You might already be aware that every September, refineries switch from making more expensive summer blend gas to a cheaper winter blend gas. Well, AAA Mississippi spokesman Don Bredman said different blends are actually behind higher gas prices in other states.
We have advocated narrowing down the number of types of fuels that are required, particularly when you look on the West Coast, which historically some are looking at $5 a gallon. You've seen refineries leaking there, but even city specific about what type of gasoline can be refined. You're talking about potentially 13 different blends of gasoline.
I had no idea it was like that specific. I thought there were just the two blends. And if you still got questions, winter gas blends are designed for cold weather performance, ensuring that engines start easily and run efficiently in low temperatures. A lower volatility summer blend could make it harder to start a car in freezing conditions.
Yeah.
New knowledge for me.
Yeah.
56 years old. I just learned that.
Oh, my gosh. All right, so it's September, and we really haven't seen a whole lot of tropical storm activity. It seems like every year the Weather Service, NOAA, says, oh, get ready, it's going to be a huge year for bad hurricanes, but we really haven't seen that. What's going on?
Well, there are a couple of things you have to remember when they say it's going to be a bad season. Just because these hurricanes haven't made much of an impact at landfall in the United States doesn't mean they don't exist, right? So the predictions can still be accurate. We're still having the hurricanes. They're just not making a U.S. landfall. But based on past weather data, the typical peak of the Atlantic hurricane season is September 10th.
Okay.
It has been a quiet hurricane season so far, but Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross says we aren't out of the woods yet, and here's why it's been so quiet.
The tropical Atlantic is just hostile to tropical development. The temperatures in the atmosphere are not conducive. There's dust lingering late into the season. The high pressure over the Atlantic is unusually strong. Looking ahead, after this week and maybe late into next week, indications are that the Atlantic will become more conducive. And by late in September and into October, we look back into the Gulf and into the Western Caribbean for development. And in those areas at that time, development is expected to be more likely.
I hate that. I hope he's wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I do too. Kelly, good to talk to you. Appreciate you joining us today, again, giving us that comprehensive update. A lot of good stuff going on. In our news department, what a fantastic job they do of bringing to bear all the news across Mississippi. SuperTalk.fm, that's where you can find it. Appreciate it, Kelly.
Thanks. Have a great weekend, guys.
You too. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Sebring.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. That's from the All Hit Request line. We're thinking about adding that one to the set there, Rhino. Trying to figure out how to handle the steel guitar, and there's a little sax in there, too. Little Happiness. That's a happy song. It's fun. and it's about New Orleans. You hear them shining down on the Pontchartrain, and you could kind of hear the lead singer a little underneath the music there saying, down in old New Orleans. So I thought that's kind of cool. And, when I first heard that song many years ago, I said, are they saying Pontchartrain? The only Pontchartrain I know is Lake Pontchartrain. We're all familiar with that in this part of the country. So that'd be a fun one to play, I think, for our group. And
it's got a fun bass line.
Yeah. I think our guys can come up with something there. And it's fun to play on the drums, too, by the way. So, oh, man. Back again in the Element Well studio. So I got to tell you, I left here yesterday. I was exhausted. I know you were, too. It was a difficult day, and it's the convergence of so much subject matter with it being 9/11.
Yeah, I crashed about 4 and woke up again about 7.
Yeah, I did as well. I went home and had some meetings, had to take care of some phone call stuff. But, man, when I went home and I sat down in a chair, was watching the business news, and, yeah, I found myself dozing off, sleeping, and then my dog came and licked me and woke me up. But and this is not physically taxing, but you do get your adrenaline pumping when you do this. And when you come after that, it's you kind of crash, right? That's the way our body works. But the interview with a World War II veteran, that got me, man. That was just unbelievable. I felt so honored, so privileged to be sitting in the same room with Mr. Holyfield. He's an American hero. And, I thought a lot about, should I even talk to him about this situation with Charlie Kirk and so forth? And I said, I almost feel bad about discussing it with him. It's almost like saying I apologize for our country in the way it is acting these days in our culture that you put your life on the line for. That's not what it was for. It was for freedom. And that starts with freedom of speech, freedom of thought. And we should embrace diversity of thought over diversity of appearance. But the left puts it in the other direction, do they not? Appearance trumps thought. They prioritize your appearance.
Merit and logic.
Correct.
And reality.
And I am convinced that is what is driving the cultural rot in this country. Just like that post I read a minute ago from the director of admissions. How would you like to have a guy like that in charge of admissions that posts that Charlie Kirk is, everything negative, that the litany of adjectives, actually, I guess it's nouns in this case, that they use to describe people that don't share their worldview. Their worldview, I don't know what the hell it is, other than the way you look and the color of your skin and your sexual lifestyle and all that stuff. That takes precedence over what you contribute to society. And all Charlie Kirk ever said was, no, our society needs to be based on merit and value creation. We all benefit from a system such as that, not one that prioritizes your immutable characteristics or your sexual orientation, or especially if you go off and submit to medical procedures and drugs that in many cases sterilize youngsters. No, that shouldn't be a priority. It shouldn't even be accepted. And the fact that we disagree with that respectfully, and we've said it here on this program many times. You want to do that as an adult? Don't care. Don't thrust it on me.
But the fact that you speak against it at all to the left is disrespectful and problematic.
Totally. And that's what's got to change, because that flies in the face. That's an affront to free speech. Yet you see all the conflicts, and maybe this is second-order thinking, but how on the one hand can you be serious about, it's the end of democracy, if people get elected who seek to protect free speech.
Well, it's hard for the left to feel shame for their hypocrisy because they have killed shame on their side of the aisle.
That is so true. That is so true. The only shame that they feel...
That's why they felt emboldened enough to dance on Charlie Kirk's grave on public forums with their full legal name attached to it and their employer's information.
That's sad.
Because for a long time now, they've been able to say and do whatever the hell they pleased, no matter how disconnected from reality it is, without any pushback.
Agree.
That time is over.
Well, when I talk about fighting for the American way, which starts with free speech that is unencumbered and not threatened by idiots that don't like what you say or what you think, it's unfathomable to me that someone could take a human life because of what they think or say. And that means I don't care if you deem it to be stupid hate speech. I don't even know what the hell hate speech is. Whatever they want it to be, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's whatever they disagree with. Whatever hurts their feelings.
I wish we'd have never concocted the term, honestly. And we talked about it the other day. In the UK, you go to jail.
If you say I love bacon too close to a Muslim citizen, then you are going to prison.
You get arrested. It's unbelievable.
Well, I guess you don't have to be a citizen.
That's true. So I caught this. This is a quote. It's on video. I'm not going to play it, but I'll quote it. This is from a sophomore at Ole Miss. So, again, some silver lining here. And she says, in being interviewed about the Charlie Kirk assassination, I think everyone should come together and love each other. I am big in my faith, and I believe that Jesus loves you, whatever side you are on, and that is what it needs to be. Man, that is fantastic. That's so refreshing, so gratifying to see a youngster, a young sophomore in college, utter those words. Unbelievable. And Charlie Kirk, you know, he took great satisfaction everywhere he went when students would show up, students that believed in his message, and many of whom were seeing the light. He didn't browbeat them like the left did. He just exposed the truth and espoused the truth. And finally, a little inkling of discernment and logic kicked in, and they said, yeah, that does make sense. I've encountered it. You've encountered it. You can have a civil debate with people and persuade them. But when they browbeat you and say, I'm sorry, we got to kill you, that seems like that's what the left, I know people on the left will say, oh, you're generalizing. You're ascribing this to all of us. The problem is they won't speak up against it. Now, I'll give even Bernie Sanders credit. He said something that halfway appeared to call for an end to the incendiary rhetoric on both sides. I give him a little credit in that respect. It's a little bit, though. But the question is, where have you been, Bernie? You had to get pushed to this point? It's kind of like when you know you got a bad stretch of road and something bad's going to happen. Oh, we'll fix it now, right? Similar to that. We've seen the risks. It has come to fruition. Unbelievable. The media are brainwashing, constantly hollering Hitler and Nazi, as we talked about earlier in the on the C Spire text line. Also, let's see here what we got. That was earlier today. The guy, he sent us a photo, had debated Charlie. I'm curious. You're still looking at that. We don't know if that's accurate or not, talking about the person who was in custody.
Yeah, the people I've seen discussing it have been sharing the same discussion. I haven't seen it confirmed by anybody that's put the two and two together.
I've seen so many videos about the joy of it. It's on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. I've seen so many videos about the joy of assassinating Charlie Kirk yesterday. I even saw one, I think, saying that Trump's next thought, if someone made a statement like that, the Secret Service and the FBI can immediately arrest them for threats against the president.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable meetings with laminated printouts of social media posts sitting on kitchen counters while the Secret Service asks, what did you mean by this?
Totally true. On the C Spire text line, Jesse says, if the suspect is proven guilty, I could personally end his existence with zero remorse. On the other hand, Charlie would forgive him and try to lead him to Jesus. Charlie Kirk was just that good of a man. I agree with that, Jesse. Thanks for that. Coming right back, folks.
Polyup, Mississippi. Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
I didn't make it sure, playing by the rules. I come apart, baby, but now I'm fine. I'm checking troubleshooting, moving down the line. I come apart, baby, but that's okay, 'cause trouble man don't get in my way. I come apart, baby.
So, I've been a subscriber to the MIT Technology Review because it was my business, line of business, for a long time. And generally speaking, the articles are interesting, informative, educational. But occasionally they venture into politics, political policy. So there's an article that just came out yesterday, and it's addressing the movement in this country to make our children healthier, starting with healthier food, healthier diets, exercise, etc. And they published an article yesterday, we can't make America's children healthy without tackling gun violence. And of course, they're calling for gun control. No surprise. It's just disappointing. Again, when they stick...
What gun control could they possibly propose that would outlaw the use of .30-06 hunting rifles?
That's a good point. Even they, right, have historically...
They've stated they're not coming for your hunting rifles.
Completely true. So I don't know what the heck they're talking about. And again, it's disappointing to me because I do get a lot of value, personal value, out of their reporting and their articles. It's informative. You learn a lot. When they talk about technology, it's great. I mean, they're on the forefront of it. But every now and then they feel compelled to venture into making some political statement like this. And I'd say, what'd you do that for? What'd you ruin it for? Just stick to your swim lane here, man. Can't do it. And that was really disappointing. Bernie, in his comment, that was kind of interesting. What he had to say. All people. He says, political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them by force. Man, that's the truth. He's right about that. But you're guilty of it. Now, I'm not saying he's ever engaged in political violence, but there are people out there, guarantee you, that support Bernie Sanders that would condone what happened Wednesday.
Well, I mean, there's evidence of that. He's shooting at the baseball practice.
Oh, that's exactly right.
That was a Bernie
Scalise.
supporter.
That's exactly right.
Bernie supporter.
Totally right. Congressman Steve Scalise on the baseball field, practicing for the congressional baseball game there. The rep from Louisiana. Absolutely true. And we learned that he was a Bernie supporter. He didn't like what Scalise stood for. There's just example after example of that. I don't like what you stand for. I'm going to shoot you. I just can't comprehend it. I really can't. On the C Spire text line, careless profanity shows a person's weakness and ignorance. Totally agree. Casey on the C Spire text line from the Ocean Springs area. My daughter said a good friend of her got a history degree in Ole Miss and is now so liberal she cannot believe it. This girl, argues with their friends online all the time and says she and all of her history major friends from Ole Miss are right. I don't know what causes them to get indoctrinated and to accept that nonsense at face value.
It's looking more and more like that was the cause of the radicalization of this individual, was that he went off to college and got radicalized.
You got some more news on that?
I mean, just people finding information on his early life and his family life.
Yes.
And his family didn't seem to be all that politically involved. He seemed to just be a normal kid until he got to college, and the loser leftist on the college campus radicalized him into committing murder.
Yep, that is true. Tony in Saltillo says, I'm older as well. I remember when men stopped cussing and stood when a woman entered the room. I do too, Tony. And is there a problem with that? Just basic respect?
Feminists would say yes.
Oh, my gosh. I don't get why someone would object to being respected. I don't understand that.
I never accused the feminists of being logical.
All Mississippi universities have these fanatical libs, but Ole Miss has far more than their share. That's on the C Spire text line. I don't know about that. I mean, I haven't sat there and counted everybody that works at the various universities and separated them into these various categories. I spent a lot of time in the School of Accountancy. I can tell you it doesn't exist there. I have interacted with those professors and the dean, and the same with the School of Business.
Well, they gave tenure to at least one worthless waste of oxygen.
And that's over in the sociology department, right, in that group. And I know there are nutcases in the other liberal arts disciplines, no doubt. And that's generally where you find them. But then we have this anomaly in Professor Scoltetti that runs the Department of Philosophy and Religion, and he aligns with us. So I don't know about that. I really don't. I think a lot of these people hide it, and then they can't stand themselves, and they got to go out and say something. We're stepping aside for Fox News SuperTalk News. It's Representative Jansen Owens after that.
Your home. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We are, of course, live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We're pleased to welcome now Jansen Owens. He serves in the Mississippi House of Representatives. He serves the good people of District 106, which incorporates Lamar and Pearl River counties. Representative Owen, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you. Happy Friday.
Yeah, man. It is a Friday, and it's been a long and a trying week. And, gosh, a lot to reflect on, certainly over the week in this country. And I pray that we are turning the corner to better days ahead. I got to say this. I thought the governor of the great state of Utah made some remarks this morning that were just spot on, calling for unity and to set aside our political differences when it comes to those provoking political violence, and he's right about that.
I actually watched him right before I came up here, and Governor Cox is kind of somebody that's kind of flown under the radar in politics, but he made some very good statements and very true statements about how we need to start moving forward as a country.
No doubt, and he even quoted Charlie Kirk himself as part of his remarks and got a little emotional. He broke up, as you could understand, for sure. But
absolutely.
I don't know that anybody knew who he was, honestly, until this. It's terrible that this is the way we find out about the head political figure in the state of Utah.
Right.
But certainly he's been on national news, and I think he's handled the situation with competence.
He's been a strong leader. Now, I remember whenever he was running for re-election, he actually did a campaign ad with his Democratic opponent and ran it across the state and talked about how they are going to be they're going to be nice in politics, basically. So
how about
that's
that?
the first time I knew anything about Spencer Cox. I thought that was neat.
That is very unusual in today's political climate. Speaking of which, you guys are getting ready to go back to the Dome here in January, a short 4 months away. But you've been working on some stuff, right, while you've been out of session, in particular in the House with the Speaker of the House, Jason White, forming up these 4 committees task forces, whatever, special select committee, I think that's what he referred to them as, and which are organized across 4 different important issues here in the state of Mississippi. One of those, of course, education freedom. We have certainly cited you and your legislation many times for what you introduced last year, which was just a straightforward policy law. It would become statute had it passed, that just allows any child in the state to pick the public school of their choice without their school attached to their residence blocking such a transfer. Pretty straightforward.
That's right. You would think it was straightforward, and I thought it was straightforward, and the House obviously thought it was straightforward, but of course we ran into roadblocks, which we traditionally do when we're trying to change the status quo. Nothing's ever easy when you tackle the status quo, but I think we have a lot of good ideas. We know that failed last year, so instead of doing something a little less, we're going to go big or go home this upcoming session under the leadership of Speaker White.
Okay. So explain what you mean by go big here. Are you going to shoot for universal school choice, phasing that in perhaps?
We absolutely are. Our position in the House and the Republican Party position and the conservative position is the parents should be allowed to dictate the educational futures of their children.
Yeah.
And we believe those choices belong in the hands of parents because they make the best decisions for their kids, not government institutions and not bureaucrats. So moving forward, we're going to incorporate our public-to-public choice option because that is part of choice. But one of the priorities of the House is moving towards what other states have done, which includes universal school choice, the money following the child regardless of the educational options that the parent may choose.
Yeah, so in general, if you've got a K through 12 student that you live in the state, you're entitled to direct the state funding. Could be some of it, all of it. I don't know what your thoughts are at this point. Are you shooting for all of it in this case?
At least a big portion. Most states will take that base student cost portion that's assigned to the child under their funding formula, which we have our funding formula, and that amount would be what goes with the child to their ESA dollars. That's education savings accounts. And those accounts allow for parents to spend those dollars on a variety of educational options. They can't blow it at Walmart on Coca-Cola, but they can use it for tutors, they can use it for educational equipment, curricula, whatever they may choose.
Materials.
That fits their child the best.
I've oftentimes, Representative Owen, referenced Arizona. I thought they had a pretty good model, pretty good template for just what you're talking about. You get your money is available in an account, if you will, and once you apply for and you receive your ESA, then they sort of have a catalog.
That's right.
And you buy, essentially, use your money that is allotted to you to purchase all the various educational materials and assets and resources. You can't go to Walmart. They don't send you a check. There are a lot of people out there, I know you hear this, that think you're just going to send money to these people and they're going to go buy tobacco and alcohol with it. That's not how this works.
Exactly. So Arizona, I'm glad you brought that up. Arizona was the first state to pass universal school choice, and now we've had a total of 17 states pass, including all of our sister states surrounding us. But we hear a lot from the opposition, Arizona has been bankrupted by their school choice program. Well, one, I would say that's not necessarily true. They did definitely spend more money than they anticipated on the program, but why did they do that? It became immensely popular with the parents in Arizona. They definitely underestimated the number of parents that would participate. In the years since, as additional states have come in, they've had more controls to make sure they can monitor the spending. I'll use Tennessee as an example. They passed their universal choice program last year. They had 20,000 kids originally, and it grows by a certain percentage every year, like a minimal percentage. But they have over 40,000 kids now on that wait list. It's become so popular that the political pressure now is for the legislature in Tennessee to go back in and appropriate money to fund that wait list because of popularity in Tennessee.
Well, okay. Good information there. So I've also done some research about the situation in Arizona. There were a number of other factors that contributed to their budgetary problems. It wasn't just exclusively their school choice program, as opponents would have you believe.
Right.
You, I know, have been hit with the series of objections that we're all familiar with to those from those who oppose any sort of education freedom program. One of the primary ones is deals with capacity. And I had a discussion at breakfast with some of my good friends in Rankin County this morning, and of course they're concerned about a district like that that's thriving. They're concerned about we would be overwhelmed with transfer students, and we don't have the capacity. But you accommodated that in your legislation. Explain that.
That's actually correct. That from the very beginning, it's not something we added even. We actually had that. We're not going to force schools to take students when they can't fit them in the classrooms. That defeats the purpose of having a public school system. If they have capacity, though, we're just giving them the option to accept them. Okay. The biggest thing we're doing right now with the public part of the legislation is we're just telling the sending district they don't get to veto a parent's right to move. If they have been accepted by a school, anywhere that has capacity, then the sending school doesn't get to say, no, mom, no, dad. Superintendent me says, no, you can't send your baby to that school because I know better than you. And that's not right. And I think that flies in the face of what we believe as conservatives, that parents should make decisions for their children, not government.
And that's consistent with what the president believes for sure in his administration.
Absolutely. The president has been a key issue for the president. He ran on it. We talked about it at the convention. And even since he's taken office, he's implemented policies and supported other states who have implemented these policies because it's one of his key signature issues, probably because it's been in our party platform for the last 40 or 50 years.
That's exactly right. That's precisely right. But here in Mississippi, we seem to be experiencing difficulty in adhering to that aspect of the platform.
I think it's probably because we've been in a situation for the past 50 years where, Republicans have had a party platform, but we haven't been so successful at implementing what we believe in. Well, guess what, guys? We got it now. We can actually do what we want. So maybe we should just sit back and let's do what we've been preaching about for the last 50 years.
Can't use that as an alibi anymore.
That's right.
But you've heard some of the other objections, of course. And it's something else. Let's clarify the current environment requires approval of both schools.
That's correct.
What we call the transfer or school, that would be the school attached to the residence of the child, and then the transfer school, that would be the receiving school that they're applying to transfer to. Currently, both have to approve. Rarely, does the transfer or school, their home school, ever sign off on that.
That's correct. And I will say, choice is happening. On the coast, it's happening a lot between districts. So the public school choice is happening as long as a parent can get both to sign off. And generally, the motivation behind the sending district not signing off is because they don't want to lose the money.
They don't want to lose the money. Yeah, right. But they get to keep the local funds, and you have actually a plan for that.
That's
for
correct.
The receiving school. We'll get on that on the other side of the break.
That's
you can
correct.
hang around, huh?
Thanks.
Yeah, we got Representative Jansen Owens in the Element Wealth studio.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Rick Ocasek and the Cars bumping us into this segment. Thanks for that, Rhino. We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio with Representative Jansen Owens. So we just talked about the capacity issue and how that was accommodated, and that would require, help me out here, each district to provide a report to the legislature, right, on an annual basis?
That's correct.
Indicating their capacity so that they couldn't just dream up, oh, we don't have any room. Well, you just told us 2 months ago you do.
Right. Yeah. It would require a report. It would require transparency, which that in and of itself oftentimes scares people to death in some of these systems. It would require transparency. The only burden we would be putting on these receiving districts is transparency requirements. They just got to report what they're doing.
Oh my gosh.
So we can track the data.
Well, since we pay for it, don't we have a right to see what's going on? I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
I think if I'm sending my kid to a building, I get to during the day. I believe I'm entitled to some information about what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just fundamental parental rights.
Right.
Is that what that is? And in this case, taxpayer rights as well when it comes to the use of the funds.
That's right.
All right. So the capacity issue is one of those. Another one that is often cited is. Well, the private schools don't want this because it would have all kinds of government strings attached where they would have to comply with all sorts of government requirements, and they would have to accept anyone who receives an ESA, that the government would dictate the admissions process. Talk about that.
So we're not going to get involved in the in the business of going in and dictating private companies and what they should do. Now, most states have had some testing requirements, but basically what they would do is they're taking the testing that the schools are already administering in the private school setting and having them report that data so we can track and see student outcomes and stuff like that. But we're not going to get in the business of mandating who accepts who or who does what. I'll tell you what's going to take care of that problem. If there's a problem our opposition wants to say, it's going to be the market forces.
Yeah, exactly.
The schools that want to come in and innovate and tap into this market, they're going to want to be accountable to parents, which is something we don't have on the public school setting, and something they're fighting us on. If I'm a parent and I want to move my child to another district, they won't even let us do that because they don't feel accountable to parents.
Correct.
In this system, that accountability will be there. If I'm a parent and I'm sending my child to a school and I don't like it, I can go to another one, and they're going to be incentivized to keep me there, to keep the money there.
Okay, so another quip that you often hear is that, well, the private schools really aren't affordable, and that the ESA amount allocated at $6,900 now, roughly the state portion, that wouldn't cover the cost of tuition, and how are we going to handle the remaining cost of that tuition? But a recent report published by Empower Mississippi shows that more than half of the private schools in the state have a tuition that's actually less than the amount we're setting to each public school, the base amount.
That's correct. The average is a lot lower. Now, you guys in the Jackson Metro, y'all are special.
We have some expensive schools.
Yeah, y'all have a lot of expensive schools, but overall throughout the state, it would be affordable with the state dollars. But even in the Jackson metro area, let's just say tuition's $12,000 or $15,000. If I'm a parent and I get $6,900, I'm $6,900 closer to getting the tuition at a school. That's way more affordable than what it was before I had my ESA.
And let's be clear, the state's not just paying the full tuition. The state's simply saying, hey, the same amount of money that we're appropriating per student to the district based on the formula, that's what we're given in this case.
That's correct.
If it costs more to go to the school of your choice, you're responsible for that.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Pretty simple. All right, transportation. You hear that a lot about that. Well, I want to go to even a public-to-public situation. They want to go to a different public school, but they don't have any means of transportation. What would the state do in that case in your bill?
So, like I said, the ESA program, it's all encompassing. There's a lot of approved expenditures under the ESA program, which is why I like those more than I like the term voucher.
Yeah, agree.
Among those approved expenditures are transportation costs. So you can actually use those ESA dollars to get transportation. And a lot of private schools, they'll be incentivized, if they want to tap into this market, they'll be incentivized to provide transportation to their students or invest in transportation mechanisms, which we've seen happen throughout the country.
Charter schools. You and I were discussing this off the air. Honestly, when I got involved with Empower Mississippi back in 2014, the inception of the organization, and one of the first things that we tackled was a charter school program and enhancing it in the state. We had a bill, but it didn't do too much, honestly, that passed just before that. But we're limited to only D and F districts.
That's right.
And I think we got like 4 of those out of the 130-something districts we have in the state. So pretty much means that there's not a lot of opportunity for the formation of new charter schools. I got to tell you, Jansen, we thought we'd have 75 in the state 10 years ago, 12 years ago when we started this. We got 10.
That's right.
We have a charter school authorizer board. They've made, as they should, the requirements rigorous, but I don't get the feeling that they really want to authorize any new charter school. I call it the Charter School Deauthorizer Board.
That's right.
We only got 4 districts that we can put a charter school in. Can we expand that? You going to work on that?
I mean, I believe that if we're giving choice through the ESA process, the charter school is another example of adequate choice and a market that we can use to further incentivize competition within the public school sector. Charter schools currently being limited to DNF, in my opinion, is setting them up for failure in a lot of respects.
Totally true.
And then another argument, we have the post-COVID inflation under our accountability model scores. So while it says we only have 3 or 4 F school districts, that's not entirely accurate because of how the post-COVID scores have inflated. And that'll change as we change our cut scores and whatnot pursuant to the statute. We are doing some tweaks on the accountability model.
I think most people are.
Yeah, I am too.
I know the speaker is.
Yeah,
he's talked about it. Okay.
But I do believe, just like with the ESA program, public-to-public charters, you need to add more to the market to incentivize competition.
Sure. So. Totally agree. I think that would improve the quality of the public schools, as well as provide more options. One in particular I rode by the other day over here in West Jackson, not far from where I grew up, Ambition Prep.
Right.
Thriving charter school there, in and around a neighborhood where there needs to be a choice, honestly. You've got some failing schools in the area, and parents have seen fit to take advantage of the charter school, which we should point out is a public school.
Right.
Charter school is not a private school.
That's right.
And there would be more form up if parents could use the education savings account to attend a charter school.
And Gerard, we and I fall victim to it too. We get so fixated on these accountability scores as if that's the only reason a parent is choosing a school. Parents choose schools for far different reasons than the accountability scores that the government publishes. It could be safety. It could be public bullying. There are various classroom size. Child might have some issues. Smaller classrooms more appropriate. So we should not think that parents are only choosing a school based off of these accountability scores that the government publishes.
Great point. In fact, you know this, national surveys show bullying, number one.
That's
the
correct.
number one reason a parent seeks to move a child into a different school, and study after study shows once they get out of this environment where they're being bullied and they get into one where they're not, they thrive in the school.
That's absolutely correct.
I have talked to parents about that attend the charter schools. What are the 7, I think, or in Hinds County, if I'm not mistaken. And we had the school choice day at the Capitol. That was a regular event. And I just kind of hang out in the background, but they knew who I was, my association. And I have mothers come up to me thanking me that they got their child out of an environment where they were being bullied. And you can imagine the stress in your life when you're sending your child to a school environment every day.
I do think that, scores are important to monitor, but if you did a survey, and we've done this before, parental satisfaction at those charter schools, you're going to see 95% of those parents are 10 times more satisfied, regardless of what those scores are saying. And I think that's important because we always got to come back to the fundamental reason why we believe in this, and it's because of parents and their right to dictate how to educate their kids.
Totally true. And to those who oppose this idea, you're in line with the old mayor, the communist mayor of the original one of New York, Bill de Blasio. I remember when he got elected, I was in business, and I was looking to buy a company on Long Island that pretty much catered to technology in charter schools. But de Blasio gets elected, and he announces he's going to shut them all down.
That's right.
He was going to get rid of them. You're aligning with that guy if you oppose this.
You're aligning with the National Democratic Party, these liberal teacher unions that are trying to perpetuate this environment of liberal indoctrination in our public school systems. So those are the people you're aligning with by saying that parents don't deserve an opportunity to choose the educational options for their kids.
Give us a quick update on what's been happening in the committee meeting.
Well, we've got a committee meeting coming up on September 25th. We've got a superintendent, and then Erica Donalds from Florida. She's going to come speak to us and give us some good information. She leads the America First Policy Institute. That's Byron Donald's wife.
Yeah.
So we expect to get some good information from her.
Good. Well, we appreciate your efforts. I certainly do, speaking on behalf of myself and others in the state that have been advocating and continue to advocate for just simple freedom. And to those who say, well, the outcomes are going to get worse than this, that, and the other, first, it doesn't really matter. It's about freedom.
It's about freedom.
The market will take care of that.
And secondly, studies have shown that's not the case.
That's exactly right.
And I'll send a bibliography if somebody wants it.
Representative Jansen Owens has been our guest in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back.
When the man comes around.
From the Zebra. Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just a bit outside. Larry and Mize on the C Spire text line says, if we find out who radicalized this young man, do you think they should have to pay for this too? Let me answer by saying initially, Larry, no, I don't. That, again, would be, if it's just in the form of someone speaking their mind, attempting to persuade someone to do something, I have a hard time with that. That's free speech as far as I'm concerned. And if we have people that just in hearing words, spoken words, somehow that motivates them to go kill somebody, that is a sick person. That's a nutcase. Now, if they're aiding in the act, so Rhino's telling us now that there's information coming out that
it looks
there's
like there will
communication
be
on
at least
Discord.
one more arrest.
But these would be
regarding this.
accomplices to the act.
Yeah, because there are reports that the shooter was sending a Discord message to an alleged accomplice before the shooting took place about where the drop location for the gun would be. And don't forget, you also have the old guy that got arrested immediately because he told the cops it was him. I've seen conflicting reports on whether or not he was unarmed or if he had a pellet pistol. But either way, he was arrested and detained, and while he was being detained, he was repeating to himself, I have the right to remain silent, I have the right to remain silent. And then while they were escorting him out, basically dragging him to the cruiser, he was shouting, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. So either he's just another crazy liberal, or he was somehow connected and was going to be a patsy so that the shooter could get away.
Yeah, and I think that's a different situation than someone just espousing their dislike for Charlie Kirk and his views and so forth. I'm not for. I mean, that's what they're doing in the UK. I'm not for locking people up and arresting them for that. That's your expression of free speech. I think it's stupid. I don't agree with it. And Charlie would support that. He would defend that. Yeah, I don't agree with that. That's dumb. And it really serves no purpose in society. But that's a little short of actually committing a crime. I don't believe in so-called thought crimes in that respect. Now, certain public figures, I mean, I think that's our law, right? If you run around threatening the life of the president, I think that's a problem.
But if some of the reports wind up being true that he was a member of Antifa, or at least on Antifa Discord servers, then you very well could have a conspiracy case against those that saw him plotting and planning in the Discord server and didn't say anything.
Totally true. And as you well know, the standard of proof on conspiracy is quite high, as it should be, but you could get enough evidence there to close that loop and to make the case for that. So it's kind of where we are. Back to the education choice situation that we were talking about. And Larry, by the way, says, I think some of these college professors need to be investigated. Well, just for simply espousing their viewpoints, Larry, while I totally disagree with that, and I completely support the idea that we should have balance on all college campuses, especially at that malleable young age, they should be exposed to all points of view. That's how you develop critical thinking. Let each side make their case.
We don't need the government to step in and exclude someone from society for saying things that we don't believe in. But what we can do is shame and shun these worthless wastes of oxygen and subhuman pieces of filth from ever deciding that they should speak their mind in public because their minds are so riddled with stupidity.
Yeah, and there's no law against being stupid, and I don't want there to be a law against that. But that doesn't mean I support it or condone it. Spot on. On the C Spire text line, I had to go through legal means to move my son due to bullying 10 years ago. Moved him at the advice of his therapist. Yeah, and so that's spot on as well. And you've seen this. There are numerous polls and surveys that have been done. That always stands out as the number one issue. It's bullying. It's bullying, unfortunately. And the problem is when you try to discipline it, then the parents of the kid engaged in the bullying, they come out of the woodwork. And they cause all kind of ruckus.
It's another example of zero-tolerance policies actually harming those they want to help.
They're totally right.
Because if you were able to punch a bully in the nose and not have to go to alternative school for part of your school career simply because you were the victim of bullying that had finally had enough, then you likely would have more people willing to stand up to their bullies.
Totally agree. And CC in Senatobia talks about...
But at this point, you have to fear the bully and the system if you do anything to the bully.
That is exactly right. You're fighting both sides.
All because of the stupidity of zero tolerance and no allowance for nuance.
That is
which,
so
again,
true.
Came from the left. It seems like all societal ills come from the left because they're all bat crap crazy.
And again, it's pointed out, we don't see property destruction and mass riots and all kinds of crazy stuff happening, right, in Utah. Imagine if it were opposite. What if it were a right-wing person that assassinated someone that was that came from the left that was holding this event and they got assassinated? The place would be burning down right now.
Shops would be boarded up, places would be on fire, rioting would be in the streets.
No doubt about it.
But instead, conservatives held vigils. And you know who showed up to those vigils? A whole bunch of conservatives and a handful of loser leftists that had to protest the vigils.
That is exactly
had to show their
right.
butt in public and try to dance on the grave of Charlie Kirk because they're demented, evil people.
Most of the kids that's on the C Spire text line that come to a private school, it's because of bullying or to be in a smaller class, some for sports. Yeah, agree. That's absolutely right. The reality is, and this is also borne out by the polls, the vast majority of parents, guardians in this country, they want to go to their public school that is attached to their address. They want to stay in that school. It's usually where their friends are, their social friends are. They don't want to have to go to another. But it gets to a point where it becomes the only option to salvage the kid at a young age and make sure they're in an environment where they can learn and thrive. Jackson private schools is nothing more than you paying for image, not education. Okay, well, let the market sort that out. I don't know why this is so hard to figure out. I don't know why people keep sending all this stuff and making all these statements. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. The market will certainly adapt and adopt. I know that you answered someone, right now I'm looking for it, that had to do
they said,
with,
wouldn't we just create a problem that the private schools would raise tuition since every student would get X amount of dollars from the state? And I replied with, only in limited situations where there's already too much demand for a spot at the school and a waiting list because we just don't have that many completely full private schools in Mississippi.
Totally agree. In fact, as we just reported, more than half of them have a tuition that's less than the amount that we send per kid, allocate per kid, per student in the public schools. And here's the other second-order thinking aspect of this. So if every child in the state had access to the state funds associated with their education, guess what would happen if, in fact, what this person says occurred, and you just pointed it out, there's a capacity. Guess what would happen? More schools. More schools would form up. And so more schools equal more competition. More competition keeps the tuition in line. But right now, you've got a capacity problem, and no one is interested in building out like here in the Jackson area, more private schools because of lack of demand. You're pretty much on the equilibrium right now. There are waiting lists, as you know, at some of the prominent schools, but imagine if all of a sudden everyone had access to those funds. You'd have more private schools. It's simple as that. It's a supply and demand dynamic that is unquestionable and just defines basic consumption and
the left
supply.
would argue that you're taking money out of the public schools.
You don't have the kid to educate.
Ding, 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 ding. Second order thinking.
And plus, you keep the local portion. It doesn't follow the child. And guess what?
So you actually have more money per student?
Correct.
Second order thinking.
Right. And you know what? If you had an environment of discipline where this bullying wasn't occurring or the quality of the education was there, they wouldn't be looking to make a change. Maybe you'd clean it up if you had a little competition. Second order thinking. I know. All we're trying to do is create a free enterprise market in public education. That's all this does. That's all we're doing here. Nothing more, nothing less. Donnie from Pike County says, look how the left acted with the George Floyd thing. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. They poured into the streets, about destroyed every American city.
But the talking heads on mainstream media called it a fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
with the buildings on fire in the background. Oh, man. That's why they have zero credibility. Final segment on Middays to wind out the week here when we come back.
Been on welfare, and that's one place I won't be. I'll be working as long as my two hands are fit to use. I'll drink my beer in a tavern, sing a little bit of these working man blues. This song's for the working man.
We've sent that rip van.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, final segment on what has been, seems like a long week. Just so much stuff happened, and I think a range of emotions that we all feel this week.
Well, I mean, it's a perfect example of even a broken clock is right twice a day. I think it was Lenin that said there are some decades where nothing happens and some weeks where decades happen.
Yeah, so true. And that's what this one feels like for sure. Feels like a lifetime. And for those of us that are privileged to have this mic, this voice, man, I just hope we handled it right. And I left yesterday and looked at you and said, I feel good about that. I feel this sense of responsibility. And
yeah, my statement was I think we did a pretty decent job of reining in the righteous indignation.
And I agree with that. And, man, I hope as a country we can find some common ground. One thing is for sure, hopefully we can all agree on, murder is never, ever the answer. Ever. My gosh, man. What kind of country are we when that is thought to be the remedy for what we don't like, especially mere words and opinions? It's beyond comprehension. I got to get to Andy in Tupelo. He sent us a long text. I know he's a huge proponent of education choice, and he reminds us, everybody that attends a private school because they were looking for a better situation for their student child isn't wealthy. And I hear you, Andy, and I appreciate and agree with that. All I can tell you is, and I'm glad you're having a positive outcome. He shared that with respect to her daughter. We're working on it. You heard Representative Owen. He's working on it. The Speaker's working on it. I personally worked on the Lieutenant Governor. You know that. Working on it as in trying to persuade them to get out of the way and let this happen. We know where the governor stands. We know where the president stands. We just have a few people down that side, and I hope they can see fit. And I want them to know we don't want to harm what's working. And I know that that's what they think. Oh, if you did this, it would.
That's at least the excuse they use.
It is an excuse.
To hide their cowardice.
And maybe that's what it is. And I just want to be clear. No, we want to make it better. We want to give everybody a choice. How could you ever object to freedom? I don't get it. And that's all we're doing here. And I think the legislation that Representative Owen put together last year was a no-brainer in my view. And our friend, I'm going to use that with tongue-in-cheek, Senator Dennis DeBar, come on and talk to us about it, because he pocket vetoed Jansen's bill last year.
How did you know who I was thinking of when I called someone a coward?
Come on and talk to us about it. Tell us why you object to it. And surely you're not going to say, oh, no, the way to fix the public schools is to give them more money. That's the Democrats'
exactly
talking point. And that's sad. It really is. And I'm not trying to condemn or be critical of him. Certainly as a person, I think he's a good man. But on this policy, he's standing in the way, I think, of progress that could be made here in the state of Mississippi. Before we go, I'm going to pivot for a second. This just out today. The left's going to go crazy over this, Rhino. U.S. household net worth has hit a record. $176 trillion just reported for the second quarter of this year, largely driven by stock market gains, rising housing values, which are good for people that are in a house, not good for people trying to buy one. And that's according to the Federal Reserve. This is an increase of $46 trillion. That is significant. That's, 25% or so since the pandemic. Now, unfortunately, household debt has also risen over the same period. And I got to share this with you. I think I've told folks before on this program that I tracked the United States monthly Treasury report just released yesterday, and it provides details about the government's finances for a month. Last month, the deficit, $345 billion. So, despite the best efforts of DOJ, the president, others who are calling for a reduction in the crazy spending, the deficit year to date, with 1 month remaining, that being the month of September, that's when the federal government's fiscal year ends. It's at $1.9 trillion through August. We're going to be in that $2 trillion range. I said this on the air almost a year ago. We're set for $2 trillion deficits for as far as the eye can see. When are we going to do something about it? I also need to pass on the president is encouraging the House to pass a continuing resolution so that they can have more time to debate a budget. He wants a longer-term continuing resolution, does not want to shut the government down. He knows it's going to take a long time to get the 12 appropriations bills debated and passed. That's his stance. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. God bless America. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.